At my son's wedding, I was shocked when my DIL exposed hidden truths that changed everything for. Jack had always believed in the power of hard work. He had spent his life in the grease and grime of his small garage, fixing cars, teaching his son Tommy the value of a job well done. As he puttered around the family home, prepped for the big day, his heart swelled with pride. Tommy was finally getting married to Sarah, a bright young woman with an easy smile. The wedding day dawned sunny and vibrant, the little town of Maplewood buzzing with excitement, the community center shimmered with fresh flowers and bright streamers, every corner alive with laughter and joy as family and friends mingled. But as Jack stood in his crisp shirt, adjusting his tie, he felt a flutter of unease. When Sarah arrived, with her sleek urban style and polished grace, he couldn't shake the feeling she belonged to a different world. Surrounded by his hardworking family and friends, he nervously adjusted to the tension that crackled in the air. As the ceremony began, Jack's heart raced. He watched Tommy gaze at Sarah with an intensity that brought tears to his eyes. But doubts gnawed at him. Would Sarah understand the values that his family cherished? Would she truly fit into their tight-knit world? Then came the moment that would change everything. With a trembling voice, Sarah began her vows. Jack leaned in, mesmerized until it happened. Her words took a sudden, unexpected turn, and a chilling wave washed over the room. She shared her family's untold story, exposing a world steeped in privilege, where hard work was overshadowed by connections and advantages granted by wealth. Jack felt the ground shift beneath him. The room fell silent, disbelief etched on every face. His dreams of a future where hard work reigned supreme fractured in that instant, forcing him to confront uncomfortable truths. He had spent his life instilling values of grit and determination, yet here was a young woman revealing that success could be handed out like candy, leaving Jack questioning everything he thought he knew. Before they could process this revelation, a heated discussion erupted among family and friends. Words flew, tempers flared, and Jack found himself clashing with his loved ones over the very foundations of their beliefs. The room buzzed with raw energy. Some clung to the comfort of traditional values, while others, emboldened by Sarah's revelation, sought to explore new ideas about success and family. Voices raised, emotions raw, Jack felt a tightness in his chest, caught between loyalty and confusion. Moments of silence felt heavy, pressing down on Jack until he finally caught Sarah's eye. He saw vulnerability there, a glimpse of her own burdens and expectations. That moment of connection was powerful, tearing down the walls of judgment that had been erected in a matter of minutes. As they stood there, his mind began to race, reflecting on the sacrifices he had made for Tommy, the late nights, the missed games. They all suddenly felt different. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let us continue. As the laughter of children broke through the tension and the music started to swell, Jack realized that a new kind of understanding was beginning to emerge. Families coming together through shared vulnerability rather than traditional definitions of success. But as he glanced around the room, he felt the weight of unfinished business. Would this new bond be strong enough to withstand the complexities of their intertwined futures? The music played on, but Jack felt an unsettling shift, a question hanging in the air: could they redefine what family truly meant? Jack stood rooted in place, his mind churning. Conversations swirled around him, a cacophony of opinions and emotions, yet he felt strangely isolated. He observed the faces of family and friends, some bright with excitement while others darkened with apprehension. It was as if a new reality was unfolding, and he couldn't help but wonder if he was prepared to face it. With every heartbeat, he felt the ground beneath him shift. He watched Tommy kneel before Sarah, his face alight with love and admiration, oblivious to the storm brewing in the crowd. Jack had always been proud of his son's choices, but now, uncertainty crept in like a thief in the night. Was this love, so seemingly perfect, powerful enough to bridge the gap between two very different worlds. As Sarah's family mingled with his, Jack couldn't escape the whispers of doubt gnawing at his insides. The contrast was stark. On one side, the gleaming suits and cocktail dresses, poised and polished. On the other, the hard-working folks from Maplewood worn jeans and honest smiles that spoke of struggle and grit. The two worlds collided, and he feared the aftermath. "Maybe it's not as simple as we thought," an aunt whispered to another, nodding toward Sarah's parents, who seemed to stand aloof from the rest. Jack felt a pang in his heart. He had grown up valuing the simple joys of life, resembling a well-worn car that had seen years of service. Could their values really coexist with the shiny promise of privilege? "Dad, can you pull yourself together? It's our wedding." Tommy's voice suddenly pulled him from his thoughts. Jack turned, noticing the concern etched on his son's face. "You're missing the moment." "I'm sorry, son," Jack said, forcing a smile. "Just thinking about what, the suit?" Tommy chuckled, but his eyes reflected worry. "Something like that," Jack replied softly. He sensed the vulnerability in Tommy's gaze, felt the weight of his expectations, and yearned to give him the world without imposing his own struggles. But he also feared for Sarah. "You sure you want this? Are you ready to embrace what comes with marrying into our family?" he asked, the words tumbling out without caution. A shadow crossed Tommy's face. "Dad, love isn't about backgrounds. It's about people. You taught me that." Jack swallowed hard, a lump in his throat. He thought of all he had sacrificed, and of the walls that had come down in those fleeting moments with Sarah. Had he really been so blinded by pride that he couldn't see the potential for connection? Just then, Sarah stepped towards them, her eyes filled with determination, and he noticed a flicker of strength in her expression. "Jack, I understand your fears." "I do," she began. "But imagine what we can create together. Not just for Tommy and me, but for both our families." "What do you mean?" Jack's voice held a trace of skepticism. "Let us blend our worlds, create a bridge rather than a divide. There's richness in both our experiences, and it's time we embrace that." Jack's thoughts raced. A bridge? The idea wasn't entirely foreign, but it was still jarring. Could he really set aside years of learned beliefs for this new reality? Just then, murmurs drew his attention back to the crowd. People were gathering to hear a heartfelt speech from Sarah's father. Jack caught Tommy's eager smile as they turned to listen. As the music fluttered softly like the wings of butterflies, Jack felt an unexpected stirring of hope. Maybe this wasn't just about wealth versus hard work, but about wisdom shared and borders erased. As the speech began, Jack felt a bond forming in the chaos. It was tentative, fragile, but there. The future stretched before him, a myriad of untold possibilities. But just as they began to believe in a new direction, a voice shouted from the back of the room. "Why should we change for them? They won't ever understand our struggles." Jack's stomach nodded. That cutting remark sliced through the air like a knife, and he braced himself for the fallout. Would the new path be strong enough to withstand such a challenge? The eyes of family focused. Tension crackling once more, leaving Jack on the cusp of an emotional precipice. Would they be able to step toward the unknown future together, or would the past consume them all? Jack's heart raced as he turned to scan the crowded room. The chatter quieted, all eyes now trained on the source of that discordant voice. A distant cousin of Tommy's, someone he had barely spoken to since the day they graduated high school, stood there, fists clenched at her sides. Anger etched across her face did nothing to ease the growing tension in the air. He could palpably feel the weight of judgment sinking down around him, a heavy blanket threatening to smother whatever fragile hope had begun to form between their two families. He wanted to speak, to somehow dismiss the moment, but what words would make sense amidst so many emotions? Tommy's face blanched as he glanced from his father to Sarah and then back to the gathered crowd. Jack could see the storm brewing behind his son's calm exterior. He felt the urge to give him a reassuring nod, but the words caught in his throat. Was this how their day was going to be marked? Look at them. The voice continued, the cousin pointing toward Sarah's family, who stood still, rooted with surprise. They don't know the first thing about working hard for what they have. To Jack's astonishment, Sarah stood her ground, her spine straightening as she faced the crowd. And I'm sure none of us ever expected to sit in judgment based on clothes or wealth. Her voice rang clear, cutting through the murmurs that rippled through the guests. We have strengths and weaknesses in both of our worlds, and it's time we stop drawing lines. As her words sank in, Jack felt a flicker of admiration for the woman who loved his son. Could it be that Sarah had the fortitude to be the bridge he had so desperately hoped for, but just behind that flicker, doubt snaked tightly in his chest. Would her words be enough? The unease rippled through him like the uncertain tide. Would her family back her? Would his even accept her? Sarah, you don't have to defend yourself, Dad, stop. Tommy's sharp response shocked them both. You don't see what's happening here. She's trying to make peace, and you're only making this worse. Jack's mind raced. His son was right. Maybe what he saw as a threat was actually a call to embrace this change. For too long, he had felt like a parent stuck between worlds, lost in the expectations of respectability. As the arguments escalated, more voices joined in, some in support of Sarah, others echoing the worries of the cousin. Jack felt the crowd oscillate, emotions flying between anxiety and resoluteness. He realized that he didn't want to be a spectator in this moment. He needed to speak up, for himself, for his son, for Sarah. I believe in love, Jack began, his voice steady, overpowering the chaos around him. Love sees past the shiny suits and simple genes. It reaches into the hearts of those willing to listen and grow together. We have a choice. He turned to face both families. This is not just Tommy and Sarah's moment, it's ours. We can choose to let old grudges dictate our relationships, or we can embrace our differences and discover strength in them. He could feel the pressure shifting, pairs of eyes searching his face. Jack held their gaze, feeling uncharacteristically bold. He was tired of fearing the cracks in their world, he wanted to find a way to weave it together. Then a voice from deep in his heart, that familiar refrain from his youth, returned to him, unity is born from understanding, and understanding comes from listening. But before he could finish, Sarah's father stepped forward, his expression grave yet contemplative. This isn't easy for any of us. But, he hesitated, searching for the right words that could slide into the open rift. But maybe a new chapter is worth it. The crowd hushed. Jack dared to hope for shifts to come, and yet uncertainty loomed like rain on the horizon. As eyes turned toward Sarah's father's next words, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that as quickly as hope surfaced, another push was lurking behind, waiting to resolve everything they were building. In that charged moment, he felt trepidation rise, a realization that just as bridges could be built, they could also be burned. What would this moment reveal about their futures? What truths still lay hidden, just waiting to be uncovered? The stillness grew heavier, tangled with anticipation as Sarah's father weighed his next words. Jack watched him, waiting for a spark of wisdom, something that could cut through the tension like a knife. But the moment stretched on, and Jack's heart sank. This wasn't just about the families anymore, it was about their shared future, the future of Tommy and Sarah. Finally, Sarah's father cleared his throat. We've known each other long enough to know that change isn't easy, it scares us, he said slowly, his voice low but firm. But if we are going to move forward, together, we must be honest. Not just polite. His gaze shifted to Sarah, who stood with an intensity that encapsulated her courage. Sometimes being honest can hurt. But I trust my daughter to share whatever it is she feels we need to hear. Jack's pulse quickened. This is it, he thought. Uncertainty gripped him like a vice, but he knew this was an invitation, an opening for both families to truly understand one another. He exchanged a glance with Tommy, who appeared both eager and anxious. Slowly, Sarah stepped forward, eyes sparkling with resolve. We come from different places, that's true. We've faced challenges you might not know about. She glanced at her family, then back to the crowd that contained a jumble of faces, some curious, some skeptical. But I love Tommy. Our love is not just a fairy tale, it's real. It's messy and complicated but worth fighting for. A murmur rippled through the audience as people began to shift. Jack felt someone near him cross their arms defensively. It was clear Sarah's words were like a stone thrown into a still pond. The ripples of change were starting, but would they reach the shore? Everyone knows about the struggles my family has faced. She paused and took a deep breath that trembled slightly. My parents worked multiple jobs, they sacrificed everything just for us to have a chance at a better life. But we lost things along the way, moments of joy, security, some of the dreams we once had. Jack's heart tightened at her vulnerability. He could see the pain behind those words, the real-life losses that each family bore differently. It was a moment of reckoning, and he wished he could take the discomfort away. Because of that, Sarah continued, her voice rising steadily, I want us to understand each other. Wealth doesn't buy happiness. It doesn't mend broken hearts or fill empty homes. What matters is who you choose to stand beside. She gestured toward Tommy with both affection and determination. And I choose him. The room seemed to hold its breath, suspended in disbelief as the emotional weight of those words sank in. Jack felt something shift within him. There was power in vulnerability, in truth. And yet, the pressure was still palpable, each heartbeat reverberating against his chest. From the back, the distant cousin squared her shoulders, eyes narrowing. So what? You're saying we should just ignore the struggles we've had because it's hard? Her voice cut through the air, filled with defiance. Jack immediately felt everyone's eyes swing toward him, seeking his response, but something deep within him stirred. He caught Tommy's hopeful gaze, and he knew he had to speak again. Look, we all have wounds that shape us, Jack said slowly, trying to keep his voice steady. Those wounds don't define us, though. They give us perspective. They offer us the chance to be better, to grow. We can learn from them together. Across the room, he saw how Sarah's family seemed to huddle closer. There was fear, but behind it flickered a glimmer of understanding. Could it be possible that the connection was forming? But then, just as he thought they might be approaching an understanding, a phone buzzed loudly, breaking the moment like shattered glass. Several heads turned, and the sudden distraction skittered through the group. It was Tommy's mother, her expression twisted in frustration. Seriously? Can we not focus? This is not the time for distractions. She waved her phone, her voice heightened. We can't just gloss over everything. There are things we have to face. A ripple of uncertainty washed through the crowd again. Jack realized the cracks in their family's dynamic were still wide. Just when they thought resolution was within reach, a small storm began to rise, swirling back the hurt and fears that lingered unaddressed. As silence filled the room again, Jack felt that weight of doubt grow heavy once more. Would they be able to find a way forward when the past was still so raw? Could one heartfelt moment be enough to bridge the spaces between them? In that pivotal silence, a thought struck him. What hidden truths might still rise to the surface? What would the real cost of this moment be? The room was buzzing, a chaotic blend of hushed whispers and glances exchanged. Jack could feel eyes darting between him, Tommy, and Sarah. The fracture lines in their families were exposed, jagged and raw. And there, at the center, was Tommy's mother, clutching her phone like a lifeline, as if it harbored the answers to the questions hanging heavily in the air. Jack saw that familiar tension on Tommy's face, a mix of worry and urgency. It was like watching a storm roll in, dark clouds colliding with uneasy winds. Just as he gathered his breath to say something, anything, that might ease the situation, Tommy stood up. We can handle this, he said, his voice steadier than Jack expected. We need to talk about the hard stuff. We can't just sugarcoat everything because it feels uncomfortable. Don't act like you understand, Tommy's mother shot back, the sharpness in her tone slicing through the room. You have no idea what we've gone through. Jack's chest tightened. Should he intervene or let this play out? He saw Sarah's eyes flash with determination, a squared jaw set under the weight of expectation. It was then, in that tense standoff, that he realized they were all teetering on the brink of a breakthrough or a disaster. "Mom, we all have our stories," Tommy said, stepping forward with a fierce resolve. "The way we grew up, the things we lost or had to fight for, they shape us. But if we don't share them, how can we understand each other?" With each word, the tension shifted. Jack could sense the room leaning in, as if they could feel the weight of truth hanging above them. Would this be the moment everything could shift, the catalyst for real understanding? Tommy's mother, her face paling slightly, seemed to soften just a fraction. "I just want what's best for you," she admitted, the anger giving way to fear. The murmurs hushed into a thoughtful pause. Jack watched Sarah move closer to Tommy, her hand slipping gently into his. A simple gesture, yet it spoke volumes. They weren't just fighting for their love, they were bravely challenging the deep divides that kept their families apart. Jack felt a flicker of hope ignite. Maybe this was their chance. Facing the crowd, he voiced his thoughts aloud. What if we shared those stories? What if we looked at the challenges each family faced, really faced them together? Tommy's cousin scoffed in disbelief. "And what, pretend everything will magically be okay?" "No," Jack replied, trying to keep it calm. "But maybe we take those stories and use them to build something new. We can create a bridge instead of a wall." The room was still. Jack felt the weight of vulnerability again, but this time it was charged with possibility. Mothers nodded, fathers exchanged glances, some with the hint of regret. Sarah took a breath, her voice breaking the silence. "This isn't just about us. It's about what we want for our kids. Love is worth fighting for, but so is understanding. We can't just push aside the pain and pretend it doesn't exist." Jack watched Sarah's words take root in the hearts of those assembled. The flickering tension was still there, but beneath it lay something deeper, a hidden yearning for connection, for acceptance. Yet, before the moment could further swell into clarity, Tommy's mother piped up again, a twinge of sarcasm lacing her sentence. "You say that, but we all know how messy love can get. People can betray us, they can leave." Jack felt the air zipping with tension again. Doubts were creeping in, threatening to unravel the fragile threads of hope they had begun to spin. What if we opened up? What if we invited those fears to the table? Jack suggested, his heart pounding. What's the real story behind those barriers? The moment hung there, charged with uncertainty, yet pregnant with hope. He looked to Sarah and Tommy, saw the determination in their eyes. The unseen walls were still there, but he could feel a new foundation being formed. Would they be able to confront their pasts, or would those shadows linger, haunting their paths ahead? Questions buzzed in Jack's mind as the silence stretched longer. What truths were they all holding back? And more importantly, would they be brave enough to face them? Tommy's mother crossed her arms, a defensive posture, as she scanned the faces around her. Jack could feel the change in atmosphere, waves of fear and longing crashing against the shore of their unspoken pasts. "I don't know if this is the right time," she finally said, her voice wavering. "But maybe you're right. Maybe we do need to talk." The words landed softly, almost like a whisper, but loud enough to hush the remaining whispers in the room. Even Tommy's cousin fell quiet, the air thick with uncharted territory. Tommy leaned forward, anticipation brightening his eyes. "Mom, it's not just about us. It's about understanding why we feel the way we do. We can't heal unless we know the wounds, right?" There was an almost imperceptible nod from Tommy's mother. Behind her stern demeanor, her eyes glimmered with a dawning realization. She looked around the room, meeting the gazes of those who had experienced similar heartaches: Jack, Sarah, and the others. "All right," she said, clearing her throat. "Fine. I'll start." This was it. The pivotal moment they had been waiting for, straddling the edge of fear and hope. Jack sat up straighter, every emotion tightened in his chest. "I've always been afraid of losing you," Tommy's mother admitted, her voice trembling. "Since your father left, I've felt like I've had to be strong for you, but I didn't know how." The raw honesty sliced through the tension like a warm knife. Jack saw a flicker of something in Tommy, the way his face softened with understanding of his mother's struggles. "And that made it hard for me to be close to you," Tommy responded, his own voice steady but emotional. "For years, I've felt you pulling away. I thought it was my fault." "No, sweetheart, it was never your fault," she replied, her voice cracking. "I was just scared. I thought if I kept pushing you away, it would protect you from more pain." Jack glanced at Sarah, whose hand tightened around Tommy's. They were all navigating a minefield of emotion, and now it was Jack's turn to speak. "I think we all have fears that hold us back," he said slowly, his heart racing. "The fear of opening up. The fear of being judged, or worse, of being abandoned. Leaving ourselves exposed is terrifying." A murmur rippled through the group, heads nodding in silent agreement. The shared vulnerability was palpable, pulling them together even as it threatened to tear open old wounds. "I mean, look at us," Sarah chimed in, her voice unwavering. "We've felt lonely because no one wants to share their pain. But what would happen if we did? How freeing would that be?" Jack took a deep breath, feeling the weight of what they were all saying. Like a burden lifted. Maybe we'd finally see each other clearly, not as family members holding on to grudges, but as people trying to make sense of our lives. Tommy's mother wiped a tear from her cheek. "I want to hear your stories. Everyone's stories. I want to understand." "That's a start," Tommy said with a nod, his voice thick with emotion. "That's the first step to finding our way back to each other." The room felt lighter, but Jack also sensed the uncertainty swirling underneath. The reality of sharing their stories didn't just mean acknowledging their past, it meant confronting things that might hurt. But just as this newfound hope pulsed through the room, Tommy's cousin broke the moment. "You think sharing stories will fix everything? It's not that simple." The words struck back hard, silencing the energy in the room once more. Tension crept back in, an uninvited guest at their gathering. Doubts shadowed their moment of connection, making Jack wonder if they might slip right back into the dark spaces they'd just begun to illuminate. "Maybe, but we have to try," Tommy replied firmly. "Otherwise, nothing changes." The eyes of everyone glued to him, Jack felt the ripples of their fears and hopes in the silence. What if we're brave enough to explore these risks together? The challenging truths can either define us or bring us closer. What do you think? The question lingered, heavy in the air. Jack felt adrenaline course through him. Would they seize this moment, or retreat into the safety of silence? His heart raced as they all held their breath, the future dangling in the balance, waiting for someone to step forward. As Jack watched them, something shifted in his mind. The true essence of love wasn't just about fighting for each other. It was about daring to face the shadows that threatened to pull them apart. And then, just when Jack thought they were on the brink of something beautiful, an unexpected knock echoed from the entrance of the room, raising the question, what now? The knock shattered the fragile moment, the air suddenly electric with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. Everyone turned towards the door, the collective breath held as if they were waiting for a storm to pass. Tommy's mother glanced at Jack, her brows furrowing in confusion. "Who could that be?" I don't know," Tommy stammered, rising to his feet. There was a sense of hope simmering beneath his uncertainty, like a candle flickering against the darkness. With every step Tommy took towards the door, Jack felt a swell of anxiety. Could this be an interruption that would derail their progress? Or was it an unexpected visitor who might offer a new perspective? Tommy opened the door hesitantly. The sight that greeted him was unexpected. It was Sarah's brother, Lucas, his face flushed and wild-eyed, as if he had just run the length of a marathon. "Lucas!" Sarah exclaimed, the surprise splashing across her face. What are you doing here? Before he could answer, he looked right at Jack, then back to Sarah. I need to talk to you all. It's about Dad, and everything. The gravity of his words hung in the air, heavy and ominous. Jack's heart sank as that name loomed over them like a shadow. What do you mean? Lucas stepped inside, his presence filling the room with tension. I just ran into someone who I was told something that you all need to know. Everyone shifted, the emotional stakes rising once again. Jack saw Tommy's mother clench her jaw, the defenses slowly rebuilding. What do you mean, someone? Tommy asked, his voice edged with urgency. Someone who claims they know why Dad left, Lucas replied, his hands trembling. And they had a message for you. For all of us. Gasps echoed around the room, a ripple of disbelief rolling through the group. Jack met Tommy's eyes, both of them feeling the weight of generations past pressing down on them. All the relationships they had been trying to mend stood on a precipice, and a single misstep could send them tumbling back into despair. Lucas, you know that stuff is always muddled. You can't just Tommy's mother began, but he cut her off. No. Just listen. I thought it was a joke, but I couldn't shake the feeling that it could be true. I have a right to know. We all do. Jack's hands pressed into his thighs as he considered the implications. Lucas's revelation might reveal secrets too dark to bear. But was ignoring it truly the answer? What if it's all lies? Sarah asked, though her voice trembled, betraying her underlying hope. What if it hurts us more? I'd rather know than live in ignorance, Lucas shot back. His eyes sparked with desperation and determination. We've been living in the shadows long enough. Isn't it time we faced them? Tommy's mother was silent, her expression ambivalent. Jack could feel the room's tension shift, like a tightrope swaying dangerously close to a fall. As the weight of Lucas's words settled over them, Jack realized that they were at a crossroads. The fear of more pain loomed, but right beside it was a gripping sense of possibility. What if knowing the truth opened doors they didn't even realize were closed? Okay, Tommy said slowly, his voice cutting through the uncertainty. If this truth could set us on a better path, let us hear it. The atmosphere shifted, anticipation thickening the air like fog. They were standing at the brink of revelation, but could they handle what came next? Lucas took a deep breath, his eyes darting nervously to the group, then I'll tell you everything. But just know, it could change how we see everything. And just like that, the moment of truth hovered before them, pulsing with unspoken fears, hope, and the dark allure of buried secrets. Jack's heart raced, knowing that whatever Lucas revealed next could alter their lives forever. Were they truly ready for that? Lucas cleared his throat, the room heavy with expectation. I just saw someone at the grocery store. It was Reed. A silence fell like a thick blanket. Tommy's mother gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Reed? Your father? Yes, Lucas confirmed, his voice steadying. He looked the same, but different. Like he had just come back from another life. Tommy's heart raced. Reed was a name shrouded in memory's confusion, pain, and unanswered questions. What do you mean? He pushed, desperation creeping into his tone. Did you talk to him? No, he didn't see me, but Lucas hesitated. That wasn't all. Someone told me he's been living in the area. There's more he hasn't said, things that might explain why he left. The air buzzed with tension. Jack swallowed hard. So he's here. Just living like nothing happened. Lucas shook his head. It doesn't seem like that. I think he's been hiding. Tommy's mother shook her head as if trying to wake herself from a dream. What could he possibly want now? Or ever? I don't know, Lucas said, frustration spilling over. But if you really want answers, maybe it's time we find out why he left in the first place. A part of Jack wanted to scream. Could they really do this? Could they confront a ghost from the past that had caused them so much hurt? But the other part of him was drawn to the idea of finally getting closure. So what do we do? Sarah broke in, her voice barely above a whisper. Hunt him down. Tommy nodded, his determination igniting. If he is nearby, why not? We deserve to know what happened. We deserve to hear his side. Are you sure? Jack asked. Doubt still swirled within him, but he couldn't help feeling the pull of curiosity. The truth felt like a double-edged sword, sharp and dangerous. Do you think he'll even talk to us? Sarah asked, her brow furrowed with concern. I have to try, Tommy said firmly, his eyes flickering with resolve. We have to try. Jack could see the wheels turning in everyone's heads, hope battling against skepticism. Let us not go in guns blazing, he cautioned. We have to be careful. Emotions are raw. It's been years. Raw. Tommy's mother echoed incredulously. It feels like a gaping wound I can't close. This isn't a fairy tale, Jack. This is my life, I just want peace. Jack looked at her, feeling the weight of her struggle, but at the same time, he felt the stirrings of hope. What if this really was a chance to heal? Listen, Lucas said, his voice steady. We can do this together. But only if we're all in. No holding back. No more secrets. A heavy silence enveloped them. Jack felt the collective pulse of fear and hope, uncertainty and desire. The road ahead was daunting, but they stood at the edge of possibility. What if we meet him? Tommy suggested, taking a breath that swelled with courage. What if we just talk? No accusations, no anger, just allow him to say his piece. His mother flinched, a momentary flicker of pain flashing in her eyes. You think he deserves that? We're here for the truth, Tommy replied, his words laced with conviction. That's all we can hold on to now. As the group began to discuss logistics, Jack felt an unsettling mixture of excitement and dread. They were about to unearth something profoundly significant, and he couldn't shake the feeling that it would change everything. Fine, Tommy's mother conceded, her voice trembling but resolved. We do it. But let us agree right here, whatever happens, we stick together. No matter what he says. Jack nodded, the weight of the moment crashing around him. He felt the heaviness in his chest, the truth had a way of binding and unraveling all at once. As the conversation began to flow again, Jack's heart raced. Were they prepared for what lay ahead? Could they face the man who had left them all heartbroken and unresolved? Lucas shuffled nervously, his face shadowed by uncertainty. If he was hiding from us, then why now? The question hung in the air, an open door to more tangled truths. They all felt it, the stirring of old emotions and unhealed wounds. What if he came back to set things right or to push us further apart? Jack mused softly, as the group faltered in their planning. The weight of what lay ahead loomed larger with each passing moment. Tommy's mother looked at him, wide-eyed. We can't turn back now. And just like that, the fragile thread of hope and despair interlaced once again, leading them toward a confrontation that neither felt ready for. What truth would be uncovered when they finally met Reed? The sun hung low in the sky, painting everything in a golden hue as they gathered at Tommy's house, ready to make a plan. The air buzzed with unease. Jack could feel his palms sweating, his heart drumming a nervous rhythm against his ribs. The thought of Reed felt like a heavy weight, almost choking him with apprehension. Tommy's living room was adorned with mementos of a life that had moved on, but the shadows of their past loomed large. The walls had witnessed laughter, joy, and the painful absence of a father. Jack scanned the faces of his friends and Tommy's mother, each one caught in their thoughts, tangling with emotions deeper than he'd ever seen. Okay, Tommy said, breaking the silence like a rock thrown into still water. So how do we do this? I mean, do we just show up and say what? Hi, Dad, remember us? His voice wavered, betraying the bravado he was trying to maintain. Maybe we could invite him here, Sarah suggested quietly. That way, he'd be on neutral ground. It might be less intimidating. Or more intimidating, Lucas countered, his brow furrowed. What if he doesn't come? What if he doesn't want to see us? The group fell silent. The weight of the possibility pressed in, each of them lost in the maze of what-ifs. Jack's mind raced with images of Rita's father, the man who left without a word, the man whose absence was a ghost at every family gathering. We need to be careful with this, Tommy's mother said, her voice cutting through the tension. I don't want to see anyone get hurt again. This could blow up in our faces. She wrapped her arms around herself, yearning for something just out of reach. Then we need to prepare ourselves, Tommy replied, his voice steadying. We need to agree on what we want from this meeting. What answers do we seek? What answers? Jack echoed, a bitter edge creeping into his voice. Do we even know the questions? The room darkened with the weight of unspoken words and unresolved feelings. Jack thought of the countless times he'd wished for a chance to confront Reed to ask why he left, why he didn't fight for them, why they weren't worth sticking around for. We can't just approach this casually, Lucas pressed. If he's been hiding, there's a reason. We might not even like what he has to say. Or we might find out that he was forced to leave, Sarah added, her voice tinged with compassion. What if he didn't want to? What if he was in a situation he couldn't control? Tommy took a deep breath, his eyes scanning their faces. Whatever happened, we deserve to hear his side. We might not like it, but it's been far too long living in the dark. Jack felt a surge of conflict deep inside him. Did he want to hear Reed's excuses? Or did he want to take back the years they had lost? A soft hand touched his shoulder. It was Tommy's mother, tinged with the resolve of a woman who had fought alone for far too long. Whatever happens, we have to stay united, she said. This family must not fall apart again. We've been through enough. In that moment, Jack sensed the collective force of their pain, a wound still fresh, still raw. He could see it in their eyes, the hope mingling with fear, and he suddenly realized that this journey was not just about Reed. It was about them, about healing, about rewriting the narrative of their lives. What if Jack started, his voice fading on the edge of an idea? What if we don't just confront him? What if we hear him out and then we decide what happens next? Silence returned, the weight of the proposal hanging like a fragile thread. Everyone looked at one another, a moment of understanding passing through the room. Tommy finally nodded. That's fair. Let us set aside our judgments. This is about finding our truth. And if we find that truth hurts? Lucas asked hesitantly. Then we deal with it together, Tommy's mother replied firmly. We'll face it as a family, just like we should be done years ago. With that unspoken agreement nestled in their hearts, they began to sketch a plan, a way to reach out to Reed. The path was riddled with uncertainty, but it was the only way forward. As the shadows stretched across the floor, Jack's heart raced with a mix of determination and fear. Would they really get the answers they sought? Or would they find that some questions were better left unasked? And just as hope flickered alongside doubt, Jack felt the tremble of something deeper, a premonition that this would change everything again. What new revelations would surface as they ventured deeper into the tangled web of their past? The day had finally come. Jack stood in front of the mirror, taking a deep breath. Today, everything would change. Today they would confront Reed. The atmosphere in Tommy's living room simmered with a mixture of anticipation and dread, every inch of space filled with unspoken words. Tommy paced nervously, glancing at his family. Jack could see the weight of anxiety resting on his shoulders. Sarah, holding tight to Tommy's hand, squeezed it gently, offering strength while her eyes sparkled with determination. Lucas looked resolute, his jaw clenched as he silently prepared himself for whatever truth Reed might uncover. Tommy's mother shifted from one foot to the other, visibly torn. One final glance exchanged among them and Jack knew they had to do this. The past had haunted them for too long. It was time to unearth the buried secrets and face the man who had left them all in emotional turmoil. Jack opened the door just as the clock struck what seemed like the final minute before the storm. Each second echoed like the countdown to a life-changing event. Tommy stepped forward and dialed Reed's number. His breath held, nerves heat racing through the room like an electric current. With each ring, the air thickened. When Reed's voice finally came through, Jack felt like the room fell silent, though the tension still hung heavy. "Tommy?" There was a brief pause, then Reed continued, "What's going on?" Even through the phone, Jack could sense the discomfort, the uncertainty. Reed had never been good with confrontation. "Dad, we need to talk." Tommy's voice was steady, yet it wavered slightly under the weight of emotion. "About what?" Reed's tone shifted, a hint of dismay creeping in. "About why you left and everything that followed." Silence enveloped them, the air thick with anticipation. Jack felt the pulse of his heart swell with adrenaline. Could this be the moment they'd all been waiting for? Would Reed finally acknowledge the pain he caused? "All right," Reed finally relented, hesitating for the briefest second. "I'll come." The tension in Jack's chest eased a fraction, but a storm of emotions brewed just beneath the surface. After what felt like an eternity, Reed arrived. He stood in the doorway, a stranger cloaked in familiarity. The years had not been kind, but there he was, a reflection of the man Jack remembered, muddled with memories and hurt. They were about to navigate the unknown. "Hi, Dad," Tommy said softly, his voice barely above a whisper. The words hung between them like a fragile thread waiting to break. Reed's eyes darted between each family member as if searching for a clue, a hint of their readiness. "I came as soon as I could," he said, his voice laden with an emotion that was hard to decipher. "Thank you for coming," Tommy responded, determination swelling in his chest. "We just need to understand why you left." With each word Tommy spoke, Jack felt like they were reaching into darkness, grasping for remnants of understanding. Reed's shoulders dropped ever so slightly. He gestured for them to sit, his eyes forward, unwilling to meet theirs. "I didn't want to hurt you," Reed began, taking a deep breath. "When I left, it felt like I had no choice. There were things happening. Is that an excuse?" Tommy's mother interrupted, her voice sharp, yet vulnerable. "You hurt us more by leaving." "I know, and I hate myself for it," Reed replied, genuine remorse bleeding through his words. "But I thought I was protecting you by stepping away." Jack could see the cracks forming in Reed's defenses, exposing the pain that lay beneath. Tommy's face was a mixture of anger and betrayal. Jack felt the shared hurt radiating among them, a collective wall bearing decades of unaddressed pain. "You made the choice to leave." Tommy's voice rose, a mixture of frustration and heartbreak. "We deserved better than that." "I deserved better than that." "Then let me tell the truth." Reed's voice wavered. "I thought leaving would keep you safe from my mistakes. I messed up, and I didn't want that stain on your lives." Each word fell heavy in the room. Jack could feel they were peeling back layers of hurt, revealing the rawness that had been buried for too long. "Maybe it was wrong to run," Reed admitted, vulnerability spilling into his voice. "I entered a dark place. I became ashamed of what I couldn't provide. I thought you all would be better off without me." "Better off?" Tommy's anger sparked the air. "You were gone. We needed you." The tension was palpable as Reed hung his head, shame casting a shadow over his face. Jack found himself surprised. Could it be that Reed, in his own way, had suffered, too? They weren't just victims, they were a family shaped by generational trauma, yearning for connection amidst pain. "Let us help each other through this," Tommy urged. "We all have stories to tell. We can do this together." Jack nodded slowly, feeling his heart shift. "Facing this as a family doesn't mean we won't hurt," he said. "But maybe it can lead us to healing, rather than continuing the cycle of pain." The room shifted, each family member exchanging tentative glances, the weight of vulnerability hanging like a soft blanket around them. Reed inhaled deeply, a glimmer of relief washing over him. "I never thought it could be like this," he said, almost amazed. Jack sensed the tide turning. Reed was here, and while the path ahead remained complicated, it was a path they would take together. Through their stories, their pain, and their love, maybe they could redefine family. As the sun set, casting golden rays through the window, Jack felt hope surge anew. Their past didn't have to dictate their future. They could rewrite their narrative, stitch together wounds and create something remarkably beautiful from the mess they had made. With that thought, Jack smiled at the faces around him: Tommy's fierce determination, Sarah's unwavering support, and Lucas's quiet understanding. They were all there together. "Let us write a new chapter," Jack proclaimed, voice steady with conviction. "We choose healing. We choose to face the truth." And as everyone nodded, with shared fears and newfound hope intertwining, they knew they were ready to walk the road ahead together, their hearts open to the possibilities of love, acceptance, and unity, as they finally emerged into the light. That so much had changed, but they were stronger now. They had taken the first steps toward healing together. If you resonated with this journey of transformation and healing, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Click that like button to feed the algorithm and help spread the message of unity. Leave a comment below about your feelings regarding this powerful ending. Did you feel the journey? And don't wait not even one more second to share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Let's spread the hope together.